So we're entering into chapter 7. And in chapter 7, we'll be talking about mean, median, mode, and range. That should be an A. So let's define what those words mean. And then we'll get started on how we find them. So mean is the sum of the data divided by the number of data items. So mean is when you add a series of numbers together and then divide that number by how many numbers there are. So if we have the numbers 2, 4, 6, and 8, and we want to know the mean, we would add these together. So 2 and 4 is 6, 6 and 6 is 12, 12 and 8 is 20, and then we would divide that by 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 goes into 20 5 times. The mean of these numbers is 5. Mean and average are sort of the same. The next one we have is median. And median is the middle value of an odd number of data items. So, if you have an even set of numbers, then the median is the average of the two middle values. So if we go back to those numbers we had before, where we had 2, 4, 6, 8, we would take the mean of these two numbers, so 4 plus 6 is 10, divided by 2 is 5. Your median would be 5. Now, let's say we had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That number is your median because it is the middle number. And the next one we have is mode. And mode is the value or values that occur most often. Okay, so if you have something like a set of numbers and there's a number that is repeated, if it's the only one repeated, then that's the mode. And we'll talk more about that when we go through our examples. And then range is the difference between the highest number and the lowest. So it's taking the highest number in a set of data numbers and subtracting the lowest. Okay, so let's look at an example to find all of these. Okay, so the first example they give us is a series of numbers, and they are 2, 1, 0, 8 first, 0, 2, 4, 3, 24. Now, because we know we're going to want them in order later, the best thing to do when you have a series of numbers like this is to put them in order. So 0, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, and 8. Okay. So to find mean, we add these all together. So 0 and 1 is 1, 1 and 4 is 5, 5 and 3 is 8, 8 and 8 is 16, plus 8 is 24. So added together, these equal 24. Now, how many numbers do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going to take 24 divided by 8, and we're going to get 3. So our mean is 3. Our median, remember, if we have an even set, we take the mean of the two middle ones. So these are your middle numbers. So 2 plus 3 is 5, divided by 2 is 2.5. Now mode is numbers that are repeated, and we have 2 of those. We have 2 and 4, and our range is the greatest number minus our smallest number, which is 8, because 8 minus 0 is 8. Okay, so if you turn the page and look at example 2, it says, choosing the best measure to describe a set of data. So, the line plot in the book shows the number of hours 15 people exercised in 1 week. Which measure of central tendency best describes this data? So, justify your answer. So, this person found each one. And then they decided how many people that represented. So, we have a mean of 4.2, and then it says most of the people exercised fewer than 4 hours, so that does not describe the data set. Then we have median. The median is 2, and it says the median best describes the data set because the majority of the data is clustered around the data value of 2. And the greater number, mode, the greater number of x's occur above the 1, and the mode is 1. So the mode represents only 4 of the 15 people. So they chose that the median was the best one. But we have a little chart down here that says knowing which one is the most useful. And I want you to write this down in your notebook so that you can look back at it when it asks you that question. So mean, so first it gives you the measure, and that's not how you spell measure. So we have mean, we have median, and we have mode. Mean is most useful my spelling is not good. Okay. Most useful when the data is spread evenly. So if your data is spread evenly, the most useful would be the mean. If the data set has an outlier, meaning an extreme value, so then your median is going to be your more useful. So if we look back at example 2, it had an outlier of 14 hours. But most of everybody else was clustered down here between like 2 and 3 hours, 1 and 2 hours. So if you have an outlier, your median is going to be the most useful or accurate measure to use. And then mode is important when many data points of one value are important, like an election result. So data value, many data points of one value are important. Sorry, I was reading the wrong thing. Many data points of one value are important. Then you would use mode. Okay, so let's look at some of the, let's look at example 3, and then I want to look at just a couple of examples in the chapter before we get started. So it shows, the table shows the number of art pieces created by students in a glass blowing workshop. Identify the outlier in the data set and determine how the outlier affects the mean, median, and mode of the data. Then tell which measure of central tendency best describes the data with and without the outlier. So, with the outlier, the mean is 3. Without the outlier, it's 4.8, almost 5. So the outlier increases the mean of the data. So an outlier is going to drastically change your mean because it's going to add a bunch of numbers to it. Okay? So if you're adding a set of numbers and dividing how many you have, it's going to change it because it's going to be out here adding a bunch of numbers. Median was, with the outlier was 3, or without the outlier was 3, with the outlier was 3.5. Didn't change it that much. It was still in the same area. And here it says there was no mode. Okay, so an outlier number can drastically change your mean, but not so much your median, which is why then this would be the better number to use for your central tendency. Okay, so that measure of central tendency is like telling other people what usually happens. So most people generally do this based on your data. But you have to be careful because if you have an outlier, it's going to change your mean. So you want to use your median instead. All right, let's look at the questions here to kind of see what they're going to be asking you. So a lot of these questions are going to have you doing some reflection. So like 1 and 2, it looks like you're just finding mean, median, mode, and range. That's pretty simple. For number 3, you're going to have to think about it on whether or not the outlier is going to skew your data. And again, with number 4, any of the word problems, it looks like you're going to have to do some explanation, and we'll probably have a sentence or two as an answer. And you may have to find your data sets with and without the outlier in order to find your answer. So your assignment is only 1 through 14, all of them 1 through 14, but it does look like it's going to take a little bit of time to get this done. So if you have any questions, ask. Otherwise, get started on your homework and just take your time and work through it as accurately as you can.